Hey guys, today I'll explain quickly how to approach problems from quantitative standpoint. First of all, I want to mention that we will not cover some deep top secret algorithmic trading strategies in this video. I'll simply cover basic concepts that you should be aware of and you can apply even if you are not trading algorithmically, if you trade manually. And so let's get to the point. So first of all, we need to choose the account we will be trading, and the best accounts out there are from Lucid. Lucid trading has the easiest rules to follow, no time limitation, so if you trade in manually, the Lucid is the way to go. I'm not affiliated with them, I do not have a code, that's my just personal experience basically. The next step is obviously to define a risk management. Yes, we will do it before even understanding the strategy. Risk management consists itself of three things that we should care about: is minimizing variance, choosing proper size of the position, and drawdown management. So let's get first to the variance. What the variance is. So when you're trading, you do not choose your wealth path, because market can do whatever and your strategy will perform differently. And if you have, for example, very low win rate strategy, even though with high RR, I think you can understand that if you will simulate equity paths, they will look very different. Some will look like this and some will look like this, and the distance between these two is our variance. So we want to minimize that. In order to do that, we need to minimize our risk to reward, because minimizing loss rate while keeping high risk to reward is close to impossible. So prop firms allow us to trade with lower strategies. Even with high tail risk, you will come out profitable simply due to disproportionate payoff that prop firms have. So now let's get to the proper position sizing. For 50k accounts, you do not want to risk on evils more than $1,000. Yes, this is a pretty big amount, but let me clarify that. Even with strategies that have almost no edge due to disproportionate payoff that prop firms have, you can simply profit from the market's volatility. In other words, gambling with tiny edge has much more sense in a prop firm environment. But obviously doesn't mean that you should go if you do not know how to trade, risk half of your drawdown on 50k accounts. This advice is terrible if you are not already making money for prop firms. So if you also do not have any stable income, I would not suggest you doing that. That will lead to a complete disaster. So for regular people, 50k account risk management will look like this. If you want still to remain aggressive with your funded and evils, 600 is the maximum amount you can go with. You're still like 3 consecutive losses in a row away from breaching an account, but if you are not the beginner and simply looking to optimize that and you know that you're making money consistently, why not sizing up? So if your problem is psychology, then your strategy is simply not good enough. So I typically risk around 400 for 25k, just divide all of that by 2. And when I'm not really confident in a setup, I risk around 200. Now here comes the drawdown management, especially it's important on funded. So on evils, you do not have to be so strict about it. You can keep the risk high as long as evil is intact, but as long as evil is not blown. But with fundeds, everybody, including very good traders, should be careful. So how do I approach the risk management? We have our baseline balance. It will move with trade and drawdown, but let's imagine that it's around this point right now. So for me, comfortable risk management is 5 consecutive losses in a row to breach an account. That simply comes from backtesting my personal strategy, and if you have data of your strategy and you wanna see how it performs in the prop firm environment, you can check out my website ufug.fun. The link will be in the description. But overall, you can measure simply the probability of hitting X amount of trades in a row using simple probability theory. I cover that in my free probability guide, also on my website. It's also interactive, so it can be really insightful to you. When I reach a middle between my initial balance, but when I'm halfway through to my drawdown limit that I do not want to hit, I cut risk by 50%. So if I have $1,000 left, instead of 400, I will be risking 200 and try to slowly recover with small wins. Once I get back above, I slowly size up. The second thing you need to know is dynamic risk management. What does it mean? So you should have imaginary confidence factor. Imagine it like a speedometer or anything. We will express it in percents. So when you're 100% confident, you size up. When you're 50% confident, you do not do anything. And when you're not really confident, you either size down. So let's say this is not really confident, you either size down or you simply do not trade at all. Such approach brought many traders to crazy payouts, because if you go with high stakes on high probability setups, you will make hella money. That's how the best prop traders approach this. And once I understood how to do it, it actually changed a lot to me, because my wins became much bigger and losses became way smaller, especially considering proper environment. You can risk high without suffering huge losses. Now here comes the pitfall of many traders, the strategy. So I see many people debating about psychology, but if your strategy has no edge and no even reason to work, like ICT for example, you're doomed beyond imagination. So with ICT I wanna mention a few things. That some people are just monsters of intuition and they're able to be profitable with ICT, but ICT itself, I mean, I know it's a system, not a strategy, but overall it has no verifiable hypothesis behind it. So for example, why should order blocks work? Just because a candle is a down candle and it changed some state in the delivery, who knows what that means, doesn't mean that in that down or sequence of down candles institutions were buying. That's not the case. Usually institutions are simply making the market. So the first step of your strategy is understanding why should it even work. Like, why should EMA work? Do you know that? I mean, I don't, so it doesn't. With order flow, I'm not saying that it's the only working strategy out there, I mean system and the holy grail, but with order flow at least I can easily understand why the price has to do what I expect it to do. For example, when we move down, there is a large amount of buy limit sitting. For example, 600 buy limit, 600 contract buy limit on Nasdaq here. That's a crazy amount. And instead of getting spoofed, it's getting filled. And at the same time, I get a bubble here, a crazy sell bubble. And that means that an aggressive market participants filled this limit order. From that, I can simply understand that if price rejects from here, that these aggressive sellers got absorbed and price should go up until another event that does the opposite happens. Another example of hypothesis would be, for example, we could trace the names of the traders, and you would see that entire family of some government leader purchases a lot of contracts of certain asset, and you know that situation in the world is very unstable right now, you can expect unusual tweet that will make the price rise. Now here comes the most important part. Does your strategy have an edge? If you have no edge, you do not trade. How to check if you have an edge if you're a manual trader? Well, that's really a question without a clear answer, since backtesting order flow has a lot of problems due to large amounts of data required, large storage capacity required to store all of the data, because one day of MBO data will be around 1 terabyte. You want simply to trade with low position size, for example. You wanna watch as setups that you do not take unfold real time, or trade on paper, and you see if your strategy has a potential to have an edge. Once you know that your strategy wins, your psychology is automatically fixed. So now the most important part, once you have an edge. When do you take payouts? When do you do that? Because, I mean, if you have an edge but you do not realize your profits, that won't lead anywhere to positive place. It won't lead anywhere. So my personal approach is to get a first payout as fast as possible. If you purchased an account, just make your money back and plus interest, and you will be good. Then from there, size down to like minimal, the minimal position size you can take, for example, one MNQ, and grind from there, because once you take a payout, the drawdown shifts and you do not have a lot of room to breathe. So once you grind your drawdown back from there, you can size up and aim for higher payouts. So for me, the best approach is to aim for 1500 payout, but that's all depends on the account you're trading. I use 50k, just scale that by the account size and adjust for drawdown ratio, and you will get the amount you need to take payout using my approach. If you're completely broke, just take payouts whenever you can, because the less market exposure you have, the less chances of you losing your money and giving it back to the market. Here comes not the quantitative part, this is the mindset, but I just want you to understand a few things. Your realized profits are not actually realized until you get a payout. Many people lose cents of money because they make $600 on 50k account, but unless you get paid out, this is not real money. So you should not care at all about the number on your funded account. That makes simply no sense when people flex anything besides payouts or trades themselves, because sometimes trades can be really cool. Do not compare yourself with other people. 99% of traders just post wins and never post losses. They claim to do some unfathomable trades, crazy amounts of money, but in reality 99% of them are fake, and it takes really like 15 minutes to fake profitability from zero. So do not trust everything you see online. And for example, if you lose a trade, you get online, you see people cheering, and you simply get upset that you didn't take a setup, that they did, and probably they're lying about taking that payout, they taken that setup, and you're still upset, and you go back to the market, you revenge trade, and you lose even more or give back the profit that you already had. You do not want to do that. This one is very important. So you should treat yourself like an algorithm. You should imagine like you're simply a computer that executes trades based on what you've learned. Your intuition is simply machine learning built into your strategy, and if you lose, that's simply an expectation there is simply, if you lose, this is simply a result of what the market does. That's the result of market's nature. You cannot choose the wealth path you take even if you have positive EV strategy. You should not compare yourself to anyone. The computer, when it executes trades, it cares about nothing else besides executing the code correctly. So that's the mindset you should copy to become the best trader as you can. And I think this was the end of the video. I wish you a good luck, I wish you good trading and success on your journey. Join the Discord and we will win.